From November 1940 to January 1957, a criminal known as the Mad Bomber terrorized New York City. He planted explosives in major venues like Grand Central Station, Radio City Music Hall, and Penn Station. Ultimately, it was an unlikely source who helped take down the Mad Bomber, a forensic pathologist who helped birth what we call criminal profiling. The case would change the way detective work was done.
For Inside Edition Digital, I'm Sal Bono, and this is New York Gritty.
Over the course of nearly 17 years, George Metesky set off a series of bombs as a way to get revenge on his former employer, Con Edison. He planted over 35 bombs. 22 of them exploded, 15 people were injured, but miraculously, no one was killed. Investigators explored every possible path to put a stop to the bombings. The series of bombings finally caught the media's attention, which at that point categorized them as pranks. The search for the Mad Bomber was, at the time, considered, quote, the greatest manhunt in the history of the police department, end quote, NYPD Commissioner Stephen Patrick Kennedy said in 1956. But it was Captain Howard Finney, the commanding officer of the NYPD's bomb squad, that tapped a psychiatrist and his then unconventional investigation technique to hone in on Metesky. Finney sought out the help of psychiatrist Dr. James A. Brussel. Brussel was one of the people in charge of New York State Department of Mental Hygiene. While looking at the evidence in the case, which included handwritten letters, a pocket knife found at a crime scene, and other materials, he concluded that the Mad Bomber was of Eastern European descent and was living outside the 5 boroughs and was also a single middle-aged man. While authorities consulted with Brussel, a Con Ed employee named Alice Kelly had been reading the newspapers and saw the information exchange between the Mad Bomber and the New York Journal American and went looking through files of past employees of her company. In doing so, Kelly came across the file of a man named George Metesky, who lived in Waterbury, Connecticut. Kelly notified authorities, who quickly honed in on Metesky as he fit the profile of what Dr. James A. Brussel discussed. The Mad Bomber was finally arrested in January 1957 in his Connecticut home. News of his arrest made the cover of every newspaper, so too did his beaming smile. Metesky was sent to Bellevue Hospital in Manhattan for psychiatric evaluation. There, psychiatrists ruled him insane and unfit to stand trial. Doctors said he was an incurable paranoid schizophrenic with a strong impulse to martyrdom. Metesky was sentenced without trial to 25 years in a state hospital for the criminally insane. He was held in that hospital for 17 years before being released in 1973 after the State Department of Mental Hygiene determined he was harmless. Upon his release, he spoke to the New York Times and admitted to planting at least 37 bombs in New York City. He told the New York Times, quote, actually there were more than 37, but not all of them went off. He added that he, quote, ceased all operations during the war years because of patriotism, end quote. Metesky said he wrote 900 letters to the mayor, police commissioner, and newspapers about his issues with Con Ed, but he, quote, never got a penny postcard back, he told the New York Times. Metesky died in his home in Waterbury, Connecticut in 1994. He was 90.